Hey there, Scapers! Mod Ryan and myself are back with another month ahead. An opportunity for us to chat about the month that has been and the month that is coming up. Let's start with the API and plugin projects. Can you tell us a little bit more about League's Equilibrium and its theming? So there's been a lot of speculation as to what you might have actually been talking about. Hello, Mod Ryan.
Hey,
good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Now, we are going to flip the format this time around. I'm going to talk about what's coming up first, and we'll get into the review section later on. It's just a little experiment to see what our viewers are actually interested in the most.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's start with the API and plugin project, something we're all very excited about. Can you tell us a little bit about what's been going on with that recently?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole ton that's been going on behind the scenes for the API plugin project. We've just finished rounding out the team, hiring in a technical community manager and a plugin moderator, which gives us the full well-rounded team to deliver on everything we need. We've been working a lot with the developers, like community developers in a sort of a closed environment, working on some really awesome like foundational work for plugins. Going to keep that under wraps, I think, at this stage. I'm not too sure how much I can talk about that, but there's some really awesome stuff going there, like just seeing some of the examples that we're getting out of the plugin support that we've been offering. They're working really closely with our team. You know, we need these features, this is how we can make it work. And it's really a massive collaborative effort to make sure that when we do release the API plugin to the wider audience, that essentially they have all the ability, the features to do everything they want to do with it. And when we announced our API project, there was one plugin above all that we knew players really wanted to see. One that would be a game changer for RuneScape and one that would make RuneScape more accessible than ever. So yes, it's finally happening. Quest Helper is coming to RuneScape. We've got a sneak peek at it in its early days, but what's especially awesome about this is that the three developers from the respective Alt 1, Bolt, and old school RuneScape Quest helpers have come together to collaborate on creating this awesome plugin for RuneScape. The release of this is going to be huge, and we just cannot wait to fully reveal this in the future. A couple of the other sort of like high-level plugins that we're really looking at, a really notable one is Menu Entry Swapper, something that we know our players have asked for a very long time. Allows you to swap, you know, if the first option you want to swap it to drop or you want to swap it to teleport, whatever it may be on an item. That's a really awesome plugin as well. A couple of others, tile markers, entity hider. It's kind of insane actually to see these coming together, just the examples. We never really expected this to happen in RuneScape, I'd say a few years ago. And seeing it now, it's like, yeah, it's night and day, and I can't wait to see that sort of go out. In the not so distant future, we're going to be opening up the API dev environment to the wider public. So we're going to see a whole range of new ideas coming in as well. And I can't wait to see that, like getting involved with the community and seeing what the community want to create, essentially. Make RuneScape the great game that we all know it is and the better game from the API plugins.
Thank you very much. And there you have it. That's the latest on the API project. Do keep an eye on our blog and social channels, as we'll be talking a bit more about this in the near future. Next, let's talk about the Hardcore Iron Man leaderboard. This is actually a leaderboard that has had a long-standing issue with data corruption for a number of years now, and we're finally taking the time to tackle that. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so essentially there was a bug that I believe we fixed last year, whereby if and when you died, essentially the way hardcore high scores work, it cements you in that place on the leaderboards as it transitions you over to being a regular Iron Man. However, there was a bug whereby when you died, instead of it being your stats that were cemented, it was essentially a random other player's stats, which has essentially meant the high score has a whole range of accounts that are just corrupted. They're not the right place, they're not the right stats for the accounts that were there. So we are looking to restore that essentially by removing all those corrupted accounts, because since the bug has been fixed, there are valid entries on there amongst the corrupted ones. So essentially doing a nice sort of cleanup, removing all the corrupted ones so that the high scores are in a correct state going forward.
Lovely. And how does that fit in with our Road to Restoration ambitions and sort of philosophy?
Road to Restoration is not just about what's going on in-game, it's also what's going on, I want to say, like outside of the game. Like generally speaking, just looking at RuneScape as a whole, restoring everything and anything, and really just making the gameplay experience the best it can be. So part of that for the Iron Man example is the high scores. That is an important part as well. So just be sort of open to like more things going on that aren't just all in the game as well.
Now, the biggest thing happening in August, maybe even in the year so far, is the release and launch of League's Equilibrium. Can you tell us a little bit more about League's Equilibrium and its theming?
This time around, League's 2 Equilibrium, as you say, is about Gothics, essentially, and balance. And a lot of green is the theme for this one in terms of colors. We learned so much off Catalyst the first time we ran a league around what players did and didn't like. And this one really just takes all of that feedback and applies learnings across the board. We've split relics out into relics and blessings, where blessings are all focused on the combat buffs so that you can get into, essentially you can get overpowered sooner. In previous leagues, it was often commented that it took a while before you felt that sort of power increase. There's way more auto quest completions. There's region locking if you're familiar with old school. And this sort of like balance nature applies as well to the relic system. As you progress through it and you unlock relics, the choices you make have a result on what happens for your god relic. So if you choose to be chaos aligned, then you will earn essentially the god tier for chaos relics as you progress. It's a different spin on Leagues 1, takes everything that players said that they wanted us to work on and improve and has done all of it. So it should feel like a massively refreshing experience. And equally as part of that, we are 7 months through Road to Restoration. So there's an opportunity here, like jumping into Leagues 2, you'll see a lot of these changes. You'll feel a lot of the changes that have happened this year. So yeah, really looking forward to this one.
Now, Ryan, when you jump into leagues, do you have a particular strategy that you're going to follow and play along with?
So interestingly, as I'm I actually used to be quite a min-maxer, but with things like leagues, I actually look at it more like just have a bit of fun and just pick what sounds fun in the moment rather than looking like what's the most optimal route when it comes to relics or tasks. It's kind of the sort of thing where I think nowadays I actually just love seeing everyone else play. Everyone else taking their unique routes or their specific ones or following guides, and I'm just there to like enjoy what's going on around me. It's more like a relaxing place for me to play. But yeah, that's my approach. How about you?
I'm actually going to try all the things that in the main game I just haven't yet had a chance to experience. I know there's so much out there, but I'm sort of going at the regular progression through the main game to get there. But of course, it's taking time. So I'll use leagues a little bit of a preview for what's in store for me.
Nice.
And just as a reminder, Leagues launches on August the 10th. If you are interested in a final reveal, we will be having a stream very soon, in just a few days' time. So do tune into that on the Twitch RuneScape channel, and we'll see you there. Looking beyond Leagues, we have Haven Hearth Part 2 and RuneFest coming up, both of which you announced in last month's Road Ahead video, which I can't help but notice that I was not part of. I was sat here by myself, just waiting for you to join.
Just me on that one.
Just you. One of the key sections that our viewers picked up on in that particular video was a segment at the very end where you spoke about us planning something. Let's quickly remind ourselves what that section was.
In addition to great content, we have even greater ambitions for things that will put us firmly back on the map. So we're planning something. The ultimate reason to welcome back old friends and mentor new adventurers, while respecting the old guard and your desire to see your homeworld thriving again. This mission is about unlocking RuneScape's true potential, and you'll hear more about it later this year.
So there's been a lot of speculation as to what you might have actually been talking about. And I know we're not yet ready to speak about what it actually is, but I do think it is important to get into the why we're talking about these things, why we're having these thoughts. And I think that's something we should really spend a bit of time talking about today.
So, we know that a year ago or so, we set out to to go on the journey of Road to Restoration. We've been on that journey right now. We've made so many positive changes to the game. We're seeing so much positivity from the community. We're seeing green shoots in regards to players coming back into the game to play, people saying, hey, I saw this and I want to get back in. Like RuneScape is in a very good place today. Arguably, it's in one of the best places it's been in a very long time. However, we know that sort of like as meaningful as each of these updates are, whether it's like the mid-game rebalance as an example, daily scape overhaul, on their own, they're great, but they aren't something that sort of like attracts the wider player base. Those are that
like a mainstream audience.
Yeah, like a mainstream audience. Anyone who is sort of, let's say, left RuneScape for now and isn't playing RuneScape at the moment, there's not necessarily some of those things that they can pick up on. Mm-hmm. So we're really looking to have like one of those bigger moments. Even some of our bigger updates, like the construction rework, absolutely amazing. So many like sharing of the houses and stuff that's going on. People really loved that one. It's also a really good opportunity, like great for us. It has that as an update has actually expanded a little outside of our sphere. You know, we do have people from Old School or even some other games saying, hey, look, you know, can't believe RuneScape's done that, which is really awesome. Haven Hive, amazing opportunity, amazing update for us. But that, again, as an area expansion, doesn't quite still break into that mainstream audience that you're referencing. That's okay, but we want to find something, we want to do something that can. We want to bring many people back to play RuneScape. We know what an amazing game it is, and this is essentially about that.
So if we think about that within the context of this year, then we've basically been laying the foundation for the future then with the Road to Restoration, haven't we?
Yeah, essentially the Road to Restoration is a great opportunity to take a pause, clean up a number of things, restore the game to how we want it to be played and seen and, you know, experienced, and sort of acts as a bridge towards like that next chapter. And foundationally, it is doing exactly that. Like I said, we're seeing people commenting on the great things that are going on, and it's really starting. Like you can feel it, right? Like I can feel the momentum that we're picking up, and really like going into 2027 and beyond. Like it's going to be. I mean, I can't say much today. It's a bit more a RuneFest thing, but like we are building towards the RuneScape that everyone wants to play, going back to our roots, really focused on more of what everyone loves, making ourselves like unmistakably RuneScape. If you haven't played for a year, 3 years, 5 years, like in terms of like roadmap next year, you'll see things on there that you're like, I really want to come back for that. Like, oh, I remember when, like the nostalgic elements. But like we're thinking about the roadmap for next year, really focused on more of what people love, more of what people know.
That's the key challenge that a game like RuneScape, which is an ongoing game, faces, right? How do you reach player awareness who aren't tuned in any way, whether they've played RuneScape before or have never played it before? How do you grab them and tell them this is actually something worthwhile and paying attention to?
It's a tough one, truly. And we have a 25-year-old game with significant depth, which is a massive positive trait. Like we're so fortunate to have that. Not many other games do. And we want to essentially pick that up and say to the world, look what's here, right? And that is often more than just the game content that's within it. You know, it's about how the game is played, what else goes on. It's not just every specific content update. Like I kind of mentioned before, a specific content update on its own doesn't necessarily like spread out to the wider world. It's really about some of its parts, like the big wrapper and how we put it together. And that's essentially what we're building towards.
So something like Treasure Hunters removal that we did at the start of the year, for example.
Yeah, exactly like that. The impact that had for us in terms of putting RuneScape, you know, like I say, on the map, the wider world essentially that saw RuneScape that maybe hadn't heard about it for a little while. That's what that moment did. And we're looking to replicate something like that so that we have more eyes on us to see the amazing game that we have today.
So thinking a little bit more about this, what would you say is the key question that is really driving us in this moment?
There's a couple of them. First one being, what would genuinely attract the interest of new players or those that have left? And also, what remaining barriers do we have that are stopping people either coming in or when they come in, bouncing out? And that's the sort of, you know, problems we want to solve, because that's where we believe there is genuine growth to build this community out.
All right, that about covers us for looking ahead. Now let's do a quick reflection on how July has turned out. At the beginning of July, we released Sunlight Sands as our summer event hub. Players were kind of hoping for a complete reimagining of the beach, so they were a little bit put out by Sunlight Sands feeling a bit familiar. From your point of view, what are your thoughts on the future of summer events and these kind of hubs?
It was our intention, you know, with the event to essentially replicate the beach, because we removed the beach from Lumbridge and we essentially wanted to replicate it so that players could still earn all those rewards. We added a couple new rewards, right? But we weren't looking to invest a massive amount of time and resource into it. We're really focused on restoring the game. A lot of other stuff going on this year, right? Bigger projects that have been ongoing. And equally, that's kind of where we want events to sit. I mentioned when talking about Road to Restoration, something that you as players, there's a couple new rewards each year. You can jump in, get them, and then just leave and go back to doing what you want to do. Because we remove the sort of, I feel like I need to be at the event all month behavior. That's what the intention was. Generally speaking, quite happy with it. I think it is a change, which is why, of course, I can understand the sentiment from players, especially those who have already unlocked everything. Makes perfect sense. We'll just keep taking feedback from players, see how we can involve them going forward. Essentially work with the players on figuring out what's best for them, but mostly happy with it. I think there's still opportunities for tweaks here and there.
Let's chat about Play on House.
Yes, the big one.
The big one. Let's start with how it actually went.
So fantastic release. I'm sure everyone can see and hear about it. It's everywhere. No matter where I look, there's someone else's house or garden or
football
house
pitch?
That has no garden or football pitch. Yeah, it's really creative seeing what people have done so far. In terms of just like some pretty cool stats to know about, on day one, I think it was around 153 billion gold was removed from the game via general store purchases, and it's about 15 times more than the normal average day. Yeah, as a whole, honestly, super like happy about that update, super proud of the team. And we really like showed what we could do in terms of innovating within that space, giving players the freedom to customize, even to the point where there's just crazy creations, right? Like seeing what people do. Some people are going for, I'm going to have 50 of this KBD trophy on my wall, to other people saying, I'm just going to have one of each. Really awesome update. It's a great evolution of the construction skill and equally just the systems behind it, setting up the foundations for so much more to offer for the player in house in the future, how we offer more trophies, more furniture. Essentially, the possibilities are endless. And I think that's one of the awesome things about this. It's really set ourselves up for many things going forward.
So launch went really well. And then we followed that up with a few updates since then, haven't we?
Amongst all the regular fixes, a bit, like a few quality of life here and there, some of the bigger ones that are being worked on were being able to move rooms entirely, like pick the whole thing up and move it, customize your floor, edit room in general, like stand in a room, press edit. These are the sort of like foundational features that have the ability to add now since players have engaged with it. Moving a room is kind of insane. Like you literally pick the whole thing up, drag it wherever you want, rotate it, place it. It's insane tech, and I love it. But yeah, that should be live by the time this video goes live, I think.
The push to construction level 120 also included a little bit of rebalancing that we did afterwards. And players actually had a lot of thoughts about what constitutes AFK gameplay versus lean forward versus active. Fought for in 3 was brought up a lot here. I know that you talked a little bit about that, but could you tell us a bit more about your general thoughts on lean forward gameplay?
The interpretation that different people will have on what this means, but from my point of view as creative director for RuneScape and given sort of the design direction, for years, or at least in recent years, we've done a lot of what I would call lean back gameplay. By nature, it's designed to be more AFK, something that you can, for example, using Fort, something you can click, wait for a very long period of time. And we've added lean in elements to those, such as the optimal hotspot. Another good example of this is archaeology, where by nature, you click an excavation spot, you wait. If you want to lean in, you can chase the time sprite. That is lean in methods within an AFK designed bit of content. However, I know when players talk about like active methods, what does that mean as well? So like I've given a few examples recently around Fishing Frenzy at the Deep Sea Fishing Hub is purely active gameplay. The only way to interact with it is to click, 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 click. And even that level of activity is based on click intensity. There's a lot of clicking involved. And then there's other examples like ceremonial swords with smithing, whereby that's an active method. It's less click intensive, but it's more mentally intensive. You have to think about what you're clicking, where you're clicking, calculating how to essentially make the ceremonial sword. And those methods they are designed to be active methods. Mm-hmm. So I think when we were talking with the community recently, a lot of community picked up on sort of interpreting when we say lean forward for these methods we've been referencing as if we're like misunderstanding what we mean by active. Ultimately, I want us going forward to make sure that skills have choice, whether they are AFK methods, whether there are AFK methods with lean-in elements, or whether there are just purely active methods. Realistically, all skills should have a range of this so that you have a choice, whether you're, me not so much right now, but when you're at work, if you want to play RuneScape on the side, do some AFK method. You head home in the evening and want to really engage, lean in, do something active. Ultimately, like the philosophy and sort of design direction is to introduce all of those elements to many skills so there are options.
So some players felt, with AFKing, it should be, 15 minutes and you click once and you fire and forget. Active should be you're constantly engaged, like you say. And the lean in, I suppose, for many players, they're not quite sure where it sits because it's active every 3 minutes. And I suppose a little bit of the question is, how long is AFK, right? How long is a piece of string? So in your mind, when we talk about lean in gameplay, what kind of behavior do you expect from players when they're engaging with it? So AFK is often second screen. What do you expect people to be doing when they're leaning in?
I will say AFK doesn't always need to be second screen. And to your point, it can differ in length of time. Like 15 minutes you use as an example is like the most extreme amount of AFK. Yeah. Being AFK for 30 seconds is also completely viable. And then when it comes to leaning in, there's a difference between leaning in because you want to optimize or leaning in because you need to. And what I mean by that is, let's use RuneSpan as an example. When it came out, it was considered an AFK way to train rune crafting. Today, though, a lot of people probably say, isn't that AFK? Actually engaging with entities in RuneSpan isn't that long. It can range from a couple of seconds to say 30 seconds overall, but you aren't AFKing for multiple minutes. And that has a lot of elements where you have to jump islands if you want to optimize by finding the right nodes that you want to interact with. And that sort of lean in. That's like the lean in version of RuneSpan, but people wouldn't say that's active. RuneSpan is not an active rune crafting method. Running to altars, on the other hand, absolutely is, right? You're constantly running, teleporting, making runes, teleport back, bank, etc. It's very active. There is room for everything. And honestly, I think that all skills need a range of those, but not all skills need all this range on that spectrum. What I mean by that is pickpocketing, as an example, in thieving, has a longer AFK window. I do not think every skill needs a long AFK window, but I do think there's room for every skill to potentially have a more lean back AFK method. But yeah, lots of opportunities. Love to hear more from the players, talk about what they love. Honestly, I'd love to hear what active methods people have loved in RuneScape over the years, whether that's in RuneScape or old school, and equally, what are their sort of more favorite AFK methods, because even in the AFK field, it does differ a lot. Some feel better than others, purely just based on the aesthetics, like where you are in the world and how does it feel. So yeah, love to hear from you all.
There was a lot of love for the mid-game rebalance, but it's also fair to say that some folks were maybe a little bit disappointed that it didn't address everything that mid-game has with regards to issues. Can you tell us a bit more about those, perhaps, and how we approach the design philosophy for this one?
As you can imagine, solving the mid-game in one game update is not necessarily a possible thing to do. But when looking at all of these updates, early game, mid game, late game, or just quality of life changes, fixes in general, there's a lot of focus on what has good value to the players, what is the most meaningful thing, and thinking about prioritization. And there's always a ton of things we could do. I think that for the mid game rebalance, it hit a number of things really well, and to agree with some of the players, and maybe a few things it missed and could have done better at. But that's all part of learning, all part of this restoration journey we're on. And as I say, there's still more to do in terms of both early game, mid game, end game, essentially just RuneScape changes. Looking at the late game rebalance later this year will be a good opportunity to learn from some of the things we did in the mid game. I'd love to hear from players again of what they want to see from these rebalances. Do they prefer breadth over really detailed specifics? Because in this example, right, we did a lot of fletching changes as part of the fletching retiering that went in. So it's kind of like let's call it a small fletching rework was part of this update. Whereas maybe if we didn't do that, we could have done 30 more breadth changes. I'd love to know what players think. We really focus on what we think has the most value for all players, but there's definitely room for further improvements.
It's also worth considering, actually, that this isn't the only time in RuneScape's history that the mid-game will ever be touched, right? We have opportunities to come back to it in future.
Absolutely. I think from my perspective, I always want to see us making sure we're looking at RuneScape and taking action where necessary to keep on top of it. I've often used the phrase weed our garden. Don't let the weeds grow too big. Make sure we're actively addressing it. I think things like drop rates are a really good one where over the years, we've released more and more content. And for example, there's a boss from 10 years ago that has the same drop rate that it had 10 years ago. But today, it's a piece in the journey that doesn't need to be as rare anymore. And I think those are the things we should always keep on top of, making sure that we are keeping the game, let's say, up to date with the way in which it's played today. So yeah, definitely not the only update for it. And we will continue to keep doing this.
And that's about all we have time for today. Thank you for tuning in and sticking with us. We know you could have been doing anything with your time, and we really appreciate you choosing to spend it with us. Do let us know what you enjoyed the most today, and we'd love to keep improving. With that said, good luck to all you scapers who'll be joining us in Leagues 2 Equilibrium. We'll see you in Gillinor.